Periods. Let's talk about it, okay? And so that's what virgin actually means. It's just gotta stick together.
What do I always say?
Listen to your pussy.
She never lies.
Sister Strain here.
Your favorite feisty feminist filmmaking duo.
You're listening to The Sister Strain.
Today is a very big day. We officially have our first male guest on the Sister Strain podcast.
The first man to ever grace our podcast.
Inaugural male guest on the Sister Strain.
I am the thorn between two roses today. Yes.
Maybe it's opposite.
Thank you for having me. I'm very thrilled to be here with you guys today.
We are very happy to have you.
We would love, for those watching who don't already know who this esteemed gentleman from our community is, we'd love for you to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, my name is Brian Knowler. Do you guys care which video I go with?
No,
you're good?
just
okay.
Whatever feels right. If it feels good, do it.
Okay. So my name is Brian Knowler. I live in Chatham, Ontario. I've been a police officer for about 27 years. I'm a non-practicing lawyer. I do some writing, I do some speaking, I do lots of things. Lately, I've found myself getting into the middle of some very pressing social issues that are facing not only Chatham, Kent, but a lot of other areas as well. Mm-hmm. That being homelessness and the rights of municipalities versus citizens versus the people living in those encampments. I've done some writing online and it's generated some back and forth. And I'm trying to put out what I feel are facts, not opinions, not emotions. Yes. And I think that's what drew this together.
Yes, today. That is why we are here today. I think we're all working in different degrees of social justice
champions
world,
of squashing misinformation now and trying to do what we can to do the research and spread the facts.
Share a little more information with people, hoping that they can make more informed decisions, and we can all be a little more aware about what is happening in our community, what work is being done in our community, and kind of championing the people who are on the ground, really working hard to make change.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know one of the big topics right now, specifically around the housing crisis, which this short series is centered on, has been charter rights and the encampment. And we saw that you did a media post recently to address this for anyone who is a little bit confused about it or who maybe is sort of wielding it inappropriately or ineffectively, if you want to.
Good way to put it.
Yes. Well, and I think, some commentary for anyone who did watch the council meetings was the municipality's lawyer stood up and brought these facts to the table, and there was still commentary like, oh, we need a new lawyer, or he's working on the side of the municipality. So I think it's really important to bring other voices in that sphere.
We have another man of the law here to also share his perspective on the matter.
To come in forward and say, no, this is the law, no matter where you are, no matter who you're affiliated with, this is just the law. It's not someone working in the favor of the municipality.
No. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the problems is because it is such an emotional issue. Mm-hmm. A lot of the argument is not argument, it's a rhetoric, and it's being driven by that emotion, right? Which is understandable because people are passionate about things like addictions and withdrawal and homelessness. And, there was some very compelling
reputation.
Thank you. At council, and some of them were quite moving, and you can see why people are obviously, this is such a hot button issue for them. However, so that's the trauma informed side of me. The law side of me is, quite frankly, the law is the law.
Yeah.
And legal professionals will never agree. You could put 10 lawyers in a room and say that wall is purple, and 8 of them would say no, it's some degree of different purple. That's what lawyers do. We generally disagree. The charter, though, that's pretty much set in stone.
Yeah.
And what prompted the video the other day was a lot of people saying, well, council should just use this piece of the charter called the notwithstanding clause, which is a piece of the charter that says in very limited and quite honestly extreme circumstances, provincial and federal governments can pass a law that literally says this does not comply with the charter. We admit we are breaching your charter rights for this reason. It can only last for 5 years. It has to be reviewed after that. And at that time, if the emergency is done or if the crisis is over, then the theory is that it gets removed. That's it.
Right.
municipal level councils can't do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people saying, well, just pass a bylaw to remove the camp and put the notwithstanding clause in.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't do that at our level, right? Or a municipal level. The federal government could, in theory, during a civil emergency or national emergency. Quebec has done it quite frequently with language laws to preserve French language laws and culture, and that's the argument they use. It's kind of like the nuclear option for a government. Like if you are going to release a piece of legislation that says flat out, sorry, your charter, and it's only some of them, right? It's your one's freedom of expression, freedom of religion, pardon me, not religion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, those ones. You can't limit someone's movements.
Yeah.
You can't alter, say, the election schedule, or you can't say, well, we're not going to have elections during the time of this law, and you can't touch language rights.
Okay.
At the big federal level, okay? So unfortunately, if it happens, like I said, it's sort of a nuclear option, and it basically says, for this period of time, we know this is going to suck for you citizens, but we feel this is such a crucial issue to public safety, to public security, to maintenance of good order, what they call peace government and good order, peace, order, and good government. We need this law.
Yeah.
And that was getting thrown around, like it's a tool you could pick up at Home Depot.
Yeah.
And it's not. It is literally like the most powerful political tool a government can use. And while there may not be repercussions in terms of you can't challenge it in court, you clearly make yourself you run the risk of becoming very politically unpopular.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought, okay, let's explain this before it gets out there or the perception becomes, well, council has this tool, they're not going to use it.
Yeah.
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 I
That
think
they
I
could
did
do
hear
this change,
that commentary
but,
of a lot of people saying the deputations didn't even matter. They had their decision made. And quite frankly, yes, it did seem like they were told the legal facts beforehand and knew, regardless of what happens, this is the choice we're going to have to make.
Yeah.
And obviously for that reason, and most people wouldn't know that in-depth information about the charter rights. I myself did not know. So.
And I think the decision there is no decision to make. The decision isn't in your hands. You don't technically have the right to make that decision. And I think, it is a crisis. The housing situation is a crisis, and it is a growing crisis. But there is a difference between that and like a public emergency. And it's talked about a lot too. It's like, is it dangerous or is it uncomfortable? And I think a lot of that in our society, in our community that we're seeing too, is like, it is very uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable for a lot of people to witness. It is uncomfortable for a lot of people to have in their backyards.
To be around, to see every day, to acknowledge.
We should all be uncomfortable with the fact that it fucking exists.
Exactly.
The fact that there are people who are in one of the country that's generally one of the most highly regarded in the world in terms of contentment and GDP and all those other things, and yet there's thousands of people every night who are looking up at a tarp.
Yeah.
It's that's what should make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's not comfortable to drive by on Grand Ave and see that encampment, but would you rather see people laying dead around from overdoses?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
and there's a lot of there's no good option of the scenarios, and I think a big thing
flying around is the harm reduction enabling conversation of, well, if we're providing these people with food and clean needles and certain things they require to live, then that's enabling their lifestyle and their choices to live that way and make the decisions they do. When really, when you think about it, it is a systemic issue, right? That's going to take a really long time to sort out a solution. So in the meantime, are we supposed to let these people, just starve?
Yeah. Well, that's because there's a lot of talk about we need more wraparound care, we need more treatment facilities, we need more services provided, and I think that people who are kind of joining the conversation more now because the moving of the encampment has stirred up more immediate eyes on it.
Yeah, for a while it was sort of tucked away.
Yes.
If you didn't go downtown, you wouldn't see it.
You could avoid it.
And some of the counselors, like Melissa Harry and like Brock McGregor mentioned, these conversations have been happening. Yeah. These roundtable discussions have been happening. Policies have been happening. Grassroots like Royal Commissions have been happening. People are trying to do the steps. There's actually a fair amount of stuff in the municipality in terms of housing as well. Different projects at different tiers that are happening.
The cabin project that just opened, that's been in the works for years. It didn't just, suddenly we need it and it's here. Like that's been an ongoing process.
So it's easy to see this one thing right now and to not realize how many steps and how many people are actively working on it. And the fact of the matter is, yes, that's a great solution. It would be great if we had more of those services. That all takes time and money to build, to get implementation. So what are we supposed to do with these individuals in the meantime? An encampment is obviously not anyone's first choice. Nobody wants that, but it takes time and money to build and put these other systems into play. There's no just let's snap our fingers, yes, we want that, let's do that. Like, it's going to take time.
We can't just abandon people, and these are our people. It is our community. It's not it's not people we don't know from other cities being dropped off. These are people that are part of our community that we do need to care for.
And council wouldn't have done what they, and that was another point of that video, is that council was put into a very difficult position. Right? The human thing to do, the compassionate thing to do, obviously, is whatever we can. But council are elected officials. They have responsibilities under various laws. They would not have done what this would not have gone the way it did without the town lawyer, to be frank, having their shit together. They would have spoken to solicitors from other municipalities where this has happened. There's case law. We're bound by case law. We're bound by precedent. And these allegations that, well, the lawyer's working for so-and-so. Okay, maybe folks don't know this, but we have a very strict code of ethics we have to follow under the Law Society of Ontario. And if you don't follow that, the first piece of which is your duty is to your client, in this case the town. You risk penalties, you risk disbarment, there's no lawyer on the face of the planet who works for a municipality who is willingly going to put their client into a situation of a lawsuit or civil action. So the comments that, the lawyer needs to be replaced, I'll be blunt, unless you know the ins and outs of a legal practice, it's impossible to know the burden that a lawyer for a municipality carries.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, people aren't paying attention to the news and articles that have been coming out recently.
CK News today, last week, I saw an article of a woman, Harini Savlingam. I'm not sure about her last name. Anyway, she works for the Canadian Civil Liberties. She's a Canadian civil liberties lawyer. And she had done an article essentially stating, yes, this is absolutely against the charter rights, and that organizations such as herself are watching municipalities and reaching out and letting people know, if you make these choices, there will be consequences. We will take legal action.
So it goes
it's above us.
It goes far beyond our municipal lawyer. It's other people from bigger cities saying, we will come through if you make those decisions.
Listening, we're actually going to Toronto this week to do an interview with her so that she can clarify the information, and that'll be involved in our housing documentary. I think it's really important to share that it absolutely goes above us in the legal system, and people are watching to see what we do.
Now, to step away from the law portion of it, because I think we've kind of talked to that one.
Thank you for clarifying all of that, because I was even still a little bit unsure.
Because law is, admittedly, even right now, this is a gray area, right? There are several appeals that are on at various levels of progression in Ontario and Canada. Eventually, my opinion is the Supreme Court will have to look at one of these, because this is simply becoming an issue in Canada that can no longer be ignored. And then when that happens, that becomes a law of the land. Right? Once the SCC says something, that's when there's no more gray. That's when it becomes black and white. And right now, these various people are throwing out, Hamilton and, Oshawa and different places. Those are all in flux. And over the next probably year, some of those things will be settled. So you're absolutely right. Organizations like Civil Liberties are watching this. They have very deep pockets. They have very, very deep patrons, and they will they'll go to war.
Yeah.
They'll go to war
That's
over
their job, is to
their
go to war
clientele,
with us,
right?
yeah.
And
So-
to clarify for everyone who's really worried about what taxpayer money is going towards, it would be going towards fighting those lawsuits.
Absolutely.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
is that where we want our money to
Yes.
go?
So sorry, I just wanted to make that one more point about the law
absolutely.
part.
Thank
So
you.
I'll take my
Yeah.
lawyer hat off now. and
No,
put
yeah, I
on-
would love to.
Well, you have so many hats. It's
Yeah, it is. You're just
a
like
man
us.
of many, many talents.
And on that note, I'd love to get into a little more personal of like, we all have varying ways that we're working in our careers and looking at social issues, but we all have a very personal perspective on what we think or
Absolutely.
our lived experience. And well, I might as well introduce. Brian is also a very talented author. We've got a couple books here. We will be putting all of these in the resources so you can find your own. But he has very vulnerably shared his personal lived experience. So we'll talk a bit on it now, but if you want to know a little more about him, you should definitely find this book and have a read.
I'm
because
sure he'll give a little bit of a description, but
but a big thing in our community right now is I think looking at the housing crisis and automatically putting substance use as the cause of the housing crisis, and a lot of people have mentioned they go hand in hand, but the housing crisis isn't only caused by individuals who are using substances. I know from mine and Kat's personal lived experience, as we've told the story of our kind of life, we were in Los Angeles, COVID happened, and we had kind of got ourselves
we
in
risked
debt.
it all, made the big move, and it did not pan out, unfortunately.
And when we decided to come home, we were very fortunate that our parents opened up their home to us so that we could lick our wounds, figure out, pay our debt back, get back on track. Our father opened up an opportunity to work with him in his company while we were able to kind of figure out how we get back on our feet. And I can't stress enough that not everyone has the privilege of having family members to catch them when
we
they
are
fall.
still living
Absolutely.
with our parents. We
Yeah.
still are fortunate enough to have that support system. It's really tough for a lot of people.
And as 35-year-old women, with the current economic standings, I can't afford to purchase a home of my own. I'm actively living with my parents. And multi-generational living is becoming more prevalent because people just can't get into the housing market. So when we look at individuals who are unhoused, if you do not have those social structures in place to assist you, your degrees. There's so many individuals in our community who are degrees away from facing houselessness themselves.
Absolutely.
And you have a very personal story to you that you've been very candid. I don't know how much you want to share, or
No problem.
but kind of your life experience and how close you feel you have come to.
Okay, so we could do a 5-hour podcast on this, but so
You have to read the book.
To make a very long story very short, in 2004, I was the first one at the scene of a fatality. I was a very young police officer. The driver in the fatality turned out to be one of my closest friends from university, and he died like literally here in my arms. I ignored it. I didn't deal with it. And over about the course of a decade, this trauma built up, and then finally 2012 came roaring forward, I should say. And finally, I knew what was wrong. I had a name to it. And getting up to that point, what I call my crash, I was using alcohol. I was bubbling off from family. I was, damaging relationships. I was, not just burning bridges. I was, fucking throwing the ashes in the river after too. And sorry about the casual F-bomb. I apologize.
I love it. Yeah. It's impassioned.
And I came very close, to losing my home, my relationships, my job, my reputation, before I was also caught. Much like your point, I had a family there who supported me. I had peer support through my work who supported me. I'm lucky. I have a good job that has benefits for medication and therapy and things like that, right? So it definitely changed my perspective, being at that point, and quite frankly, going from the perspective of a younger cop where, people are just weak and they can't get over drugs, or, if you're a drug user, just stop. How hard can it be? Or, there's lots of jobs out there. I will admit I had that mindset for quite some time. And then when you wake up and you're looking up one morning and you're like, holy shit, I'm that person, right?
Yeah.
It completely changed how I view all these issues like substance use and homelessness and trafficking and abuse. And the big one was trauma, right? Because the more and more I started to dig into it, first from sort of a clinical perspective, like reading the papers out there, reading the volumes and volumes of literature, it all showed that so many of these root issues, the root of so many of these issues is trauma.
Yeah.
And then when I started writing the books and started talking to first responders and talking to people in the field and talking to people, even in some cases, officers who were basically living in the same circumstances as the encampment, right? They had hit bottom and they didn't have that net, and they fell through. And a month before they're in uniform, and then one day their partners are picking them up off the road or arresting them for impaired driving or whatever. So they hit bottom as well, right?
Yeah.
And moving from the clinical to the personal side, it was like, holy shit, this is so prevalent.
Yeah.
This is so prevalent, and it can almost always be traced back to some form of trauma, which no one sets out to have.
No.
Whether it be childhood trauma, whether it be an abusive relationship, whether it be, whether it be an experience that happens, whether it be they were trafficked sexually, there's some root for it.
Yeah.
Even the very act of losing your home, defaulting on your home is a trauma, right? So people who lost their jobs or didn't get CERB or couldn't get support during COVID, that's all traumatic.
Feeling like you failed in life, right? We're supposed to have all these things to be successful in society, and we don't have them.
And I think it just mentally, any human can understand when you feel like you've hit your lowest, or you're like, what do I do? Where do I go from here? Mentally, just to come back from that, like that takes confidence, that takes encouragement, that takes being unafraid to ask for help and trust that there are people you can rely on.
You're at minus 100, just getting back to zero, just stable is hard enough, but trying to get to the next.
And that's especially prevalent when you look at generational trauma too, or if you're coming from a place of poverty.
I didn't even touch that.
How do you how do you get for somebody like, just go get a job? If you come from a past of feeling, again, if you're negative 100, just getting to zero is already a challenge.
And I think that's been a common commentary of specifically with Rock's been under a lot of heat with the work that they do, and a lot of commentary is, well, where's the success stories? Where are the success stories, right? And speaking of that, starting from minus 100 just to get to zero, I think the work they mainly do is try to get people to that zero, that stable place, right? Yeah. So that they can even start thinking about putting the steps and the pieces in place to get to 5 to 10
and
to
that
100,
doesn't
right?
look like a success story in the media.
Because it's not getting to 100. It's just getting back to zero for some people. That stability piece.
Well, that's where that's the post-traumatic growth part, right? Is ideally you get back to here, and then again, I'll use myself as an example. I was lucky. I was able to sort of get back to the Brian that I was and become, Brian 2.0. That's what led to the writing and the speaking and the confidence to talk about this, again, because I had that net in place.
Yeah.
So I was able to experience growth and demonstrate it. The quiet success stories you don't hear about.
Yeah.
Right? The people who maybe are able to, stop whatever substance they're using and get a job and move into housing. You don't, because that's boring, right?
Yeah.
That
doesn't make headlines.
It's not sexy, right? Yeah. The people laying on the ground every night, that's what draws eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yes.
It doesn't. It's not quite as flashy as the kill the beast, get him out of the East End, deputation drama,
and,
right?
Speaking of those small successes, we actually found out when we were filming something at Rock recently, their peer nights. We wanted to, see what happens there. 9 people have been transferred to the cabins. So I would say that's a huge success, right? 9 people, individuals who were living rough in a tent for I don't know how long, have now been given the opportunity.
And that's just the start of it, right?
To transition.
Sure.
And you have to imagine some of these individuals over time probably do maybe have some trust issues, or they've relied on supports and felt unsafe. So maybe there's a period of time where they want to see other people go through the process and know, can I trust that? Is that safe for me? Can I rely on that as the stepping stone?
A tremendous amount of courage just to take, again, just when you find yourself at zero, just to take that first step.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can attest to that, right? To say, I know what's behind me and I don't want to go back there. Moving forward feels terrifying.
Yeah.
You need to take one step at a time, but it takes so much courage to do that.
Yeah. Because success can feel just as scary as failure sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, you can be a millionaire, billionaire, and still feel like you failed, right?
Yeah.
So this might help some people who are maybe struggling with, well, I don't get it, trauma. I had trauma. It's not that bad. Okay, so first off, trauma is subjective. right? No one experiences. I could take I'll use my world. I could take two first responders who are identically trained.
Yes.
And identically trained, identical, almost to the same. Let's put them on par with experience, seniority, all that stuff. Put them through put them through the same critical incident. They will have completely wildly different experiences, because it's based on your life experience. It's based on, did you have a fight with your spouse that morning? Are you worried about your kids? Are you feeling sick? Is this hitting closer to home because maybe it's something with kids and you have kids, right? So trauma is super subjective. And I've seen that a couple of times in response to my post. Well, I had trauma and I got over it. Well, good. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
If you bounce back from your trauma, good, because trauma sucks.
Yeah.
And I use the analogy of it's like a little creature or like a little demon. I always think of the Tasmanian devil. And right. And it rips through your mind.
Shit.
Yes, it's just spinning and tearing stuff up, right? So that's when you're letting the trauma go untreated.
Yeah.
At some point, you maybe get to push it back into a cage for a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's maybe the point where you're like, okay, something's wrong. Then eventually you get to a point where you can throw, a blanket over the cage, and okay, that piece is gone. But guess what? Have another trauma, or you've stopped drinking and you're like, oh, it's only one drink, or whatever your poison is, and all of a sudden the blanket's off, the cage is open, and the little demon is tearing out again.
And
right?
that's the thing, you can't really plan
No.
or lot for it.
No.
It comes up when
You
it
don't
comes
expect it, you don't want it, but
No,
especially after
absolutely.
stuffing shit down, it's still in there.
Yeah.
It's still affecting you in ways you're not quite sure about.
So I was talking to a friend who does social work the other day, and it was the day I made that video, and she called me and like, oh, you stirring shit up again, right? We're just chatting back and forth. And she said, I would love to know how many people making deputations and how many people speaking out and how many people online making comments have no problem going home after work and having a couple of drinks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or use cannabis recreationally.
Oh, we were saying, someone,
Because that's in private,
yes,
right?
Yeah, it's someone was going through and kind of videotaping the encampment or inside people's tents without them being aware, and it's like, that is, if someone went through my recycling bin, they might be like, oh, there's a lot
She
of
had a lot of
wine.
wine this weekend.
Not all, and it's no one's business.
Yeah.
We have the right to our
that
privacy.
commentary. In encampments, there's fires, there's police calls, there's substances.
Yeah.
That's happening
Yes.
consistently inside people's homes.
Yeah.
Fighting, all that sort of thing. We just don't witness it.
Yeah.
We don't get to be
And-
front row seats to
And
the
on
drama.
that note of on that note, I'd like to pick a little bit of a segue to something that we spoke to you about when we were doing an interview with you on the subject matter, about how Chatham is a community that really comes together a lot. When there are events for fundraisers, for organizations, for initiatives, our city is amazing. We care a lot. We
Well, the
show
whole
up.
municipality,
Yes.
all the towns come together
Yeah.
in those moments.
Yeah,
of
the
need.
municipality is amazing. And
I mean, look
supporting
at
each other.
Dresden,
Yeah.
right? You're the landfill. You're
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
seeing support Dresden signs in Dresden. You're
That on
seeing
our
them
front
all
lawn
over.
right now, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
you're
and
seeing
you
them all
had-
over the county or the municipality, right?
And you had mentioned, and we, from the last year of doing all our interviews with so many
It's
women in the
come up a lot,
organization,
yeah.
people are always talking about how amazed they were with, was it May 6th
May
or May
16th
16th
Miracle?
and the gift, and how our community fully comes together all across the municipality to take part and to give during these times. And we had a conversation, it seems when it's blind giving and you're giving to this, to help our community in elusive terms, everyone is so happy and proud to give.
Absolutely.
And now when it comes to individuals that we can literally see and know need help,
Yeah,
everyone
see
is
there's
clamming up. We've witnessed in the last little bit, people who talking about how they've talked to the churches to stop doing outreach so that we can stop enabling. There's people who we know used to give food to certain places, and now like, well, I don't know, with all the backlash, am
don't
I
wanna
going to
be
be
seen
seen
as
as an
an enabler.
enabler?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
now they're worried about being caught in the crosshairs.
It's kind of heartbreaking when you
Yes.
think about it, right?
It
The
is.
breakdown that's happening. And I get, crisis is a catalyst for change. The fact that we're all actually talking about this and having these conversations and bringing it all forward, we need that to create the change that we're looking for. But it
Yeah.
is unfortunate that it is calling forth some unappealing colors
Yeah.
in some individuals.
It's a side of Chatham so I've only lived here 10 years. My wife grew up here, but it's a side of Chatham that I frankly don't recall ever seeing on any other issue.
No.
Is the, you know what, again, being uncomfortable is one thing, but comments like, well, if I find someone in my backyard, I'm going to fucking shoot him.
Yeah.
Or, well, I guess it's time to get a big dog. Or, okay, you know what, there's a difference between stating you want to keep your family and your property safe. Everybody gets that. But that's just contempt.
Yeah,
That is just showing outright contempt.
Yeah.
for people.
looking for an opportunity
Yes.
to use a physical force
Yes,
to
right.
show your dominance.
I mean, until you're driven to that point where you have to do anything to survive, I don't think you can possibly understand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Even the basics we take for granted. And I think we talked about this during that video interview. You can't get a job without a social insurance number or an address, or you have to be able to get to the interview, or
A bank account.
Yeah,
To
right.
not have access to water to take a
Yes.
shower, so you can
Yes.
show up to work the way you're
You know,
Or be
expected
able
to
to
show
wash
up
your
to.
clothes.
So
There's a
if
lot
you've
of things.
if you were finding yourself in that precarious situation, there are so many levels of just, like you said,
It's
basic
not as easy
needs.
as just get a job.
Basic needs that need to happen before you can even look at that possibility.
absolutely. I mean, and I you know, agencies like Rock are doing wonderful stuff. Rock gets a lot of heat because, like you said, they're doing the harm reduction. Again, that could be a 5-hour podcast on harm reduction, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of the thing is, people are drawing lines based on that, and again,
Yeah.
because it's a very emotional thing, and
Yeah.
and that's
And
understandable.
they want someone to blame. They're looking to point their fingers. They want to feel the
It
what's
feels
that,
better to say
indignation.
there's this
you know?
problem, this huge problem I don't know anything about. If there's one place we can put the blame and get rid of that, then I can feel better to know, okay, the problem is solved. But that's
And
not.
you know, having conversations like this, we're very aware. There is a large part of our community that doesn't want to hear the information. They have an opinion formed, and that's the way that they think, and they don't want to take the information. But I'll put out a kind of plea to the individuals who are listening on this podcast, who are looking to more voices to come to the table with facts, with some information, so that they can make an informed decision. I do hope that you will listen to these conversations, and I hope that, like the campaign has stated, I hope that you will care enough to share this information so that we can be getting it out to more people, and stop the spread of a lot of misinformation.
Not liking facts doesn't make them untrue.
Yes.
Just because you don't agree with a fact
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah.
And you're right. People don't, even when I do my TikTok videos about, you know, I did some about the fire ban in the Maritimes
Yeah.
I wasn't saying Brian says this is what the law says. And people were just adamant
Yeah.
because
It'll always be those.
my rights. Well, what about the rights of,
Yeah.
you know? I think a lot of it here comes back to, is it unlawful or is it unpleasant?
Yeah.
If it's unpleasant, that's a you issue. If it's unlawful, that's a police, council, bylaw issue,
Yeah.
right? And let's face it, I mean, for this to ever be resolved, you'd have to have multiple levels of government working in harmony.
Yeah.
You'd have to have multiple structures change. You'd have to have the will, the desire, the money. And it's not going away.
Yeah, and we can hope that
It's really not.
the more dialogue, the more conversations, the more smaller municipalities are dealing with this and making it more known, that will lead to bigger change on the larger scale. I think it is a matter of time before they do have to start addressing it more, because we're seeing it everywhere. We're not unique in this scenario.
What connects us all here today is that we're all storytellers. There's power in sharing stories, right? To be able to consider different perspectives beyond yourself. And so what we're hoping with our documentary, Unhoused, is sharing a lot of different perspectives, so that we can find that compassion piece and recognize that this is a we concern in our community, and we're only going to be able to overcome it
If we're
together
working
and
together.
collectively. And that is our form of storytelling. Brian's is in his books. So do you want to give us a
Yeah.
quick breakdown of your
Sure.
books and how you've been able to
So-
work through your traumas by writing them, and
Okay.
what people could find?
Okay, so the first one is called On the Other Side of Broken. This was basically a collection of writings that I did as part of therapy. My doctor said, I want you to always have a pen, which most cops do all the time, and a notebook that's not your work notebook. So I started carrying, just like a dollar store notebook with me. And she said, anytime you have a question, a comment, a thought, something weird you want to talk about, write it down. So I filled a notebook, and then another one, and then, you know, in a couple of years, I had shit written on cereal boxes, and right, anytime there was and I had this basically a shoebox full of notes. And then we moved to Chatham in 2014, and when we're unpacking, I'm like, oh, there's my notes. And I said, oh, you know, I'll put them away. And my wife said, well, you always said you wanted to write a book. Like, do it.
You got a book right there.
Do it.
You got a book in a box.
So,
it's ready to be made.
So it was basically pulling all those notes out and making some semblance of order, and then telling my story.
Yeah.
And then it became, okay, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
And I sent it to some people who'd been in the same experience, and they're like, dude, you have to put this out. This is amazing. This is telling a story that, you know, millions of people would love to tell, but they can't. And if you're willing to tell it, tell it.
Yeah.
I put it out. I'm glad I did. You know, there was that moment of dread when I hit publish, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do?
The vulnerability.
Right? Yes.
It's all out there now.
Right? Yes.
We love vulnerability.
Yes.
We really do.
And it was great because the feedback I got from everywhere was remarkable. And then the feedback became a big part of book 2, which is called Career Suicide is Overrated. Because what happened was I started getting messaging from people who'd read this book. And there were consistent themes over and over. And one of them was the people who are in charge of your life. They can either be leaders or managers, right? And the managers derail people, and the leaders seem to be the ones who are reaching down and pulling people up out of the water, you know, not pushing them further away. So I started looking into that and talking to, lots of respected, you know, leaders in first response and mental health. And I realized there's these common threads. So this one is about how, if you want to be a leader in today's world, and I don't mean a leader in terms of your organization, of your rank, of your structure, where you are in your, you know, your org chart. If you want to be someone who has influence, you have to acknowledge that mental health issues are not only present in Canada, in the world, but growing more prevalent.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just about meeting people where they're at, which is just being trauma-informed.
Yeah.
Right? Understanding that, you know, you're a hiring manager. You hire a 20-year-old. You're not just hiring the 20-year-old that's sitting there in front of you. You're getting that 20-year-old and everything that's ever happened to them.
Yeah.
Right? But that's what made them the person you want to hire.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And that brings good, bad, and ugly with it.
Yeah,
so
it's all of it, right?
We can all take the good, but the bad and the ugly, we have to be ready to deal with that as well.
Yeah.
And then this one, so Oath Taker Broken, this one is completely different. This is way on the other side of the spectrum. This was actually a character I created in high school for an English assignment named Katja Greenleaf, and she is an elf, and she is a real badass, and she is you can tell I created her during like the early 90s because a lot of influences were like ninjas and like really dark superheroes, and Dark Knight Returns, Ninja Turtles, stuff like that. And she kind of just lived there in my head. Like I played her as a character in different video games, and then finally, like so many people, COVID rolled around. I'm like, I need something to do.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, it's time to write her story. And I didn't know where it was going to go. I had an idea in mind. I knew that I wanted to sort of reflect my story through her. So Broken, Oath Taker Broken, is basically my story reflected in her life. She undergoes a huge loss at the beginning. She hits a bottom point. She comes back up. And then at the end, she is in a better place. She's got a girlfriend. She's got a really cool pet falcon. She ends up, sort of moving from sort of this very dark role as a, when needed, an assassin or a thief to someplace where she feels better about what she's doing.
Yeah.
It's a self-contained book, but after I put it in for publishing, the publisher's like, we love it. We don't have that many LGBTQ characters in the fantasy realm. Would you write a trilogy? I'm like, holy shit, I just finished one. You want me to crank out two more?
Yeah.
But as an author, to hear that, right? As a first-time author.
Well, it's so beautiful to know that you've taken your trauma, right? This thing that most of us just want to get rid of and never think about again. Yeah. And you've used it to create something beautiful and put that out in the world.
This is why, we find ourselves kind of in the same orbit too, that we're big proponents of the power of storytelling, the power of art to digestibly relay very important social themes and issues, and the ideas of redemption arcs. Like, you can really use art in very powerful ways to reach people and make change.
So for anyone who's experienced anything similar to Brian, or who would like to have a better understanding, you have various different options.
So depending on, do you want something a little more biographical and a little bit clinical? Go with those.
This one, right?
Do you want to read about a kick-ass elephant or falcon? Go with this one.
Yeah. So we'll make sure we attach those links
for
anyone who would like to look into getting those for yourself and doing a little research.
What you said about, sort of, the power in storytelling and vulnerability. So last year I was asked to do a panel at Fan Expo, which is the biggest nerd event in Canada, basically. And the panel was about, they asked me to talk about basically putting yourself in your writing.
Yeah.
And it was an hour-long panel. I did it with my son, Jack, who is a teacher and in drama, and he's very much like me. He's a huge nerd too. And we talked about how, I do it as a writer, he's done it as a teacher and as someone into drama. And some of the people coming up and telling stories after, like, I've dealt with this. I remember this one girl saying, I basically been abused my whole life, but my refuge was my laptop.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, you don't ever even have to publish what you wrote.
No.
You can lock that away in the darkest, deepest recesses of your brain or your hard drive and never have to do anything with it. But did putting those words down feel better? She's like, that's why I'm alive.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
The offshoot of getting to hear people share that story too is their stories is remarkable.
Yeah,
amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story. And we want to let you know, again, we will have a documentary project coming out early October. Stay tuned for dates and details and all of that. Brian will be in it. He'll be sharing a little bit more about his story.
In the meantime, we'll be putting out a series of podcast discussions with community members as we gear up to it. So stay tuned and
get
as
informed and care to share.
Care to share. We'll see you soon.
You've been listening to The Sister Strain.
If you've got something you'd like to share with us, reach out to us. Contact@sisterstrain.com.
Yours in sistership, The Sister Strain.